Hello, strategic management students. Fred David here. Our topic for discussion today is chapter 4. Hope you enjoy reading the book here. I see on page 94 here at the beginning of chapter 4, the portion of that model that's in white, you see, is the internal assessment. It's a key component of the overall strategic planning process. Of course, we learned in chapter 2 that vision mission is vitally important, and the external assessment in chapter 3, vitally important. And now we're in chapter 4, the internal assessment. And notice by that vertical line in the model on page 94, the external assessment and the internal assessment are generally and often and can be performed simultaneously in organizations. And this provides the backbone, the foundation for developing alternative strategies and objectives that we'll get to in later chapters. But let's look at chapter 4 here, because the thrust of chapter 4 is to determine for any company the major strengths and weaknesses that characterize the firm. And certainly the word internal now, this chapter is referring to factors, trends, events, data that the organization can control. That's what the word internal means. Please keep that straight, as opposed to the word external that was in chapter 3, things the firm cannot control. Recall that? Social, cultural, demographic trends, political, legal, governmental, competitors, the economy, things like that. So here I see in chapter 4, as we begin looking here in this chapter, actually I wanted to refer you on over to maybe page 110. Page 110 in chapter 4, it provides sources there for where do you get this information that needs to be garnered and assimilated and prioritized in terms of internal information. Where do you get it? And I see on page 110, it's talking there about the Form 10K for your firm and your rival firms, various websites like financeyahoo.com, various online subscription resources like S&P Net Advantage, Outsource. I recall back in chapter 3, there was a page, I think it was page 78, that also listed sources for where do you find the external and internal information that provides a foundation for a strategic plan. This was back on page 78. It gave such sources as IBIS World, LexisNexis, Merchant Online, Privco, others like that on page 78. So students often ask, well, where are we supposed to find this information? So that's why I mentioned these 2 pages as where this information comes from. You recall now already from your experience using the strategic planning template, the Excel strategic plan does not go out there and collect this information for you. It just takes the mechanics out of developing a strategic plan. But it's needing you to go out there on an engineering hunt for the facts and to determine what these factors are, because in developing a strategic plan, please know that it's vitally important for organizations to capitalize on their strengths and to continually improve their weaknesses. So here in chapter 4, we're on a mission to determine, well, what are the major strengths and weaknesses of the firm? And we'll be developing what's called an internal factor evaluation matrix here in this chapter that's analogous to the external factor evaluation matrix in the prior chapter, where we're going to list the top 10 strengths and the top 10 weaknesses in our view. And please recall, it's not the first 10 you come to. You may end up with 50 or 60 of these strengths for a particular organization and 30 or 40 weaknesses. But in your best judgment, given your understanding of the industry, the rival firms, what do you consider to be the major strengths? And as we did it back in chapter 3 in our analogous IFEM matrix in this chapter, we're going to array these internal strengths and weaknesses from high weight to low weight. Okay, so our audience, our colleagues won't have to, so they won't just be randomly in there. We're going to help our audience out by arraying for what we think is the first most important, second most important, and so forth, according to the weight. Recall from chapter 3, again, we'll see this in chapter 4. We're going to have a weight column and a rating column. So anyway, here in chapter 4, I see this begins on page 98, talking about these internal areas. Of course, they're going to cover that a firm can control, that basically has control over. So we're talking management, marketing, MIS, production operations, human resource management, supply chain management, advertising, promotion, research and development, MIS, all these things, where their manufacturing facilities are located, where their stores are located, how they do their advertising, all of these things a company can control. And that's why it'll be in this chapter under the internal assessment. So I see on page 99, for example, we begin a discussion of planning, organizing, motivating. So I'm needing you to assess, based on your research about the company, are they doing a good job of planning? Do they do any strategic planning? If not, that could be one of your primary weaknesses. Are they well organized? This is on page 99. What type of organizational structure is it? Do you consider it appropriate given the size and nature of the company? Recall from earlier courses that, this is the capstone course in terms of the organizational structure is vitally important for a company to be successful. It yields great competitive advantages. Remember, you could be structured functionally, divisionally by product or customer or region, SBU or matrix. So we're going to be looking at that as this course in this chapter unfolds. We move on into organizational culture, into marketing, target marketing, marketing research, advertising, promotion, publicity, price. How is the firm doing in your best judgment? I mean, this is the capstone course here based on your prior courses and what you see in the Form 10K compared to rival firms. So we're going to assimilate this internal information in what's going to be called, you'll see in this chapter here, an internal factor evaluation matrix. That's what we're going to be doing. Cover areas in marketing, management. We're even going to move on over into finance. I see on page 107, we start talking about finance and accounting. So here we're talking about such issues as the financial ratios. And recall that financial ratios, although vitally important, we need to look at them over time compared to industry average, in particular, and compared to major rivals, to put a financial ratio in perspective. And now I think you already realize that the template, the Strategic Planning Excel template that you've downloaded from the author website, is going to automatically generate financial ratios for you once you've entered in the financial statements. And that's going to be a key thing really regarding that I'm going to need you to do as related to this chapter. I'm going to need you to convert your financial statements, your company's financial statements that you see on Finance Yahoo or even in your company's Form 10K into the template format for an income statement and balance sheet. I'm going to need you to do that. I already have posted some announcements, a discussion board about that in case anyone has a problem or question about that. But we're going to utilize the template as a tool in this strategic plan. That's what, to be honest with you, thousands of companies are using now. This template that we're learning and using in this course. So it's not just an academic thing. It's a very practical use, this template. And it'll call for you early in that template to go ahead and convert your financial income statement balance sheets for 2018 and 19, let's say, into the template format. And do know that it goes from left to right, the years in the template. It's when you enter the data in from left to right, 2018, and then to the right, 2019. And then it'll automatically calculate financial ratios. So financial ratios, we'll get the template to calculate those. And if some reveal a major strength or weakness for the firm, we ultimately could bring it into our matrix, our internal factor evaluation matrix. So I see these ratios talked about on page 108, page 109, how we're going to develop them and use them. I see like 20 different formulas on page 111 for financial ratios. Of course, the template has these formulas already built in, and it'll automatically calculate these for you and give you the change from one year to the next. I mean, if the current ratios drop from 3.2 to 1.6, you understand that could represent a key weakness for the firm in terms of liquidity. So recall from chapter 3 and again in chapter 4 here, as you're going to see here, these internal and external factors need to be AQCD. Remember AQCD: actionable, quantitative, comparative, divisional. So vagueness is disastrous, folks. I just need to remind you that in doing strategic planning, when companies are doing strategic planning, and as you're preparing your strategic management project this semester, vagueness is disastrous. Edward Deming, the famous management scholar and practitioner, said, "In God we trust, all others bring the data." We're going to need to bring the data. The numbers matter. I mean, if it's the current ratio dropped from 3.1 to 2.98, that's not a significant factor. But if it dropped to 0.98, that's a big deal. So numbers matter. We're going to try to make sure, to the extent possible, that our 10 strengths that we ultimately just distill from, let's say, 20 or 30 strengths are A, Q, C, D when we actually state them in terms of what we're going to base the foundation of our strategic plan on. And same for the weaknesses. We're going to try to the extent possible, get them A, Q, C, D. Actionable, quantitative, comparative, and divisional. And among those four, I tell you, divisional, there you do understand what the D is, right? Division, that's by segment. Because arguably the biggest, one of the major strategy decisions or any organization makes annually is how to best allocate resources across segments or across divisions. So try to get some of this divisional information embedded in your internal factor evaluation measures that you see developed here in this chapter. Okay, try to get some D in there. I mean, look in your Form 10K, please, for by segment data. Perhaps even in the table of contents, there will be a section that's labeled, a page or two, labeled by segment information. For example, for Walmart, they have Walmart Express, Walmart Online, they have Sam's Clubs, Walmart Supercenters. Well, if you're doing a project on Walmart, where's Walmart making their money? What is the return on investment across these different segments? Try to get some of that information into your IFEM, your internal factor evaluation matrix, to put you in a better position to develop an effective strategic plan for Walmart going forward. I mean, for all I know, perhaps they should divest of Sam's Club. That means sell it, let's say, to Costco. But it'll be, any kind of decision like that would be based on the data, the information, the numbers. So I'm going to try to guide you into these 20. Nothing magic about 20, but the template uses 20 total factors. Most organizations, businesses, companies use 20. No firm can do everything they would like to do, folks. No firm has enough money, capital, resources. And that's why 20 is a manageable number here instead of 85. We might have 85, but we'll distill it down to 20. Please know that. So I see on page 113, it's beginning to develop an IFE matrix. Now look, we don't want to have all 20 of our internal factors to be financial ratios, because you understand a financial ratio is not that actionable. Let's say if we set a current ratio is 2.3, down from 4.4 the prior year. It's not as, in other words, it refers to, these financial ratios are based on the entire company rather than certain segments of the business. If that was a ratio for Walmart, for example, you would know if that decline is due to Sam's or the Supercenters or the Express or the online or the pickup, various profit centers. So that's why we're going to try to make sure our factors are A, actionable, Q, quantitative, C, comparative, please, and D, divisional. Folks, let me stop right here and take a 5-minute break on this segment of chapter 4. And I'm going to continue back here in a few minutes with the second half of this chapter, where we'll focus in closely on the internal factor evaluation matrix, the weights, the ratings, the process of putting that thing together. Because the template's going to do that for you in terms of the mechanics, but the template is needing you to go out there and discover the underlying information from the sources I mentioned at the beginning of this video, IBIS World, S&P Net Advantage, Form 10Ks, and assimilate this information in an efficient manner. So we're going to start right here, and we'll start up here in a few minutes on the second half of this chapter 4. It's good to see you. Hope you're having a good day today, and we'll start up again in a moment. Thank you.